Hello and welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. Of course, you know I'm Big Italy 42. He's Scott Mailwig at Sports 25 to Life. We're talking about tonight's 10-game slate of action tonight on DraftKings, and only a few pitchers that are in serious consideration, I think, for the two of us over the majority of our contests. We're looking at Zach Greinke against Miami and that putrid offense, really outside of Giancarlo Stanton as the top cash game play. He's the biggest favorite on the board. It's not even particularly close. He should get plenty of run support tonight as well. If it's not him, it's going to be Garrett Cole, and I think you're in agreement with me here that these are the top two options here for your cash games especially.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to try and go Greinke as much as possible. I like Cole. I just think Greinke's a lot safer for cash games. Yeah. Cole maybe has a little bit more upside, if anything, for a little bit less. So he's a little bit more of an, I don't want to say secondary option because I think he's almost as good a play as Greinke given the excellent upside in this game. But yeah. I really like both of them. I generally lean with the safer guy in Greinke, though.
Yeah, so Cole maybe your 1B option.
If you,
for some reason you can't afford him. It's a $1,300 difference here on DraftKings. So
yeah, nothing to sneeze at in the difference for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you're basically paying for the security there with the win with the big favorite. As we're looking at other options for tournaments, I know you like Jeff Samardzija as a tournament option.
Yep. He's
been pitching better recently. Obviously, we got Milwaukee backs that strike out a lot still. Not quite the ridiculous rate earlier in the season, but still well over 20%. So he's certainly in play there. Scott Kazmir is really cheap if you want to be a little contrarian and target that Boston offense. I mean, they're in the bottom 10 in the league against lefties, so he's certainly in play there. Outside of that, I know you and I talked Mike Leake, Rick Porcello as secondary options for your cash games if you wanted to go that route, if you need to save a little bit of money.
Yeah, those are probably the two guys I'm looking at the most as far as secondary cash game options, cheaper guys. I mean, outside of that, it gets pretty dicey at once you go down cheaper here. I mean, as far as GPPs go, like you mentioned, I really like Samardzija today against Milwaukee. He's not a favorite, but I think he's going to be nice and low owned against a team that has just recently gotten the bats going a little bit, and we'll see if they can keep that up. Kazmir, as far as a GPP play, I think is pretty strong. I don't love throwing him in cash games against Boston. I think he's a pretty solid play there as the favorite. And then the other guy we talked a little bit about on the pitching podcast, Ubaldo Jimenez, pretty strong play there. As far as GPPs go, favored against Toronto, had a nice game against Toronto. Just not a guy I feel great about paying for in cash games, but I feel pretty good about him in GPPs at 6,100. I mean, that's a steal of a price for a guy with the upside that he's shown a couple times this season. I'd like to think that he has even more strikeout upside than he's shown, but it's been a while since we've seen that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like you said, he's the third cheapest pitcher on the board. I mean, should get plenty of run support with Marco Estrada opposing him as well. So if you need a cheap option, secondary GPP, I'm with you. That's the way to go. Not a big fan of any of those other guys around that 6 to 7K price tag at all.
Right.
All right, let's go ahead and move on here to catcher, where Yasmani Grandal is in a fine spot at $4,400 there. He's got a nice matchup. As you know, I'm a big fan of Stephen Vogt. $3,700 I feel like is still too cheap for him in this matchup here. Unfortunately, we did just get a Reds lineup nice and early today. No Devin Mesoraco, so no cheap value play there for you. Who else are you looking at here at catcher?
Not a whole lot I'm liking at catcher, to be honest. I mean, there's nobody that really jumps out, especially like batting order wise. I mean, Russell Martin hit down in the order again last night. Yesterday he hit down in the order. I think he hit like 7th last night, right?
Which just makes no sense.
Yeah, he was red hot coming into that game too because I had him in my early lineup. Oh no, he sat out yesterday. It was he hit 6th on Saturday, I believe, is what it was. So hard to say what he's going to be hitting here. I'd like to see him up in the 2-hole, honestly, but with Jose Reyes hitting there and Devin Travis hitting well, I mean, I think he's probably going to stay around 5-6. If he falls to 7, it's really tough to play him, but I think he's a decent play against Jimenez, a guy who makes a decent amount of mistakes. Pierzynski, 3,200 against Leak. Don't mind him if he's hitting 4, which I think he's hitting 9 straight games that he's played in now. So should be in good shape there. One guy that I like quite a bit, actually, is Miguel Montero with the wind blowing out against a righty and DeGrom. Only 3,300. I think that's a steal of a price. He's probably going to be the catcher that I play the most, honestly.
Yeah, and DeGrom's had a little bit of struggle here with lefties as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't mind that play. And outside of that, we're just going to be value hunting when lineups come out. Maybe get a guy in a nice spot, nice and
Yeah.
cheap. Outside of that, not a whole lot to love. We'll go ahead and move on here to first base where you like Freddie Freeman as lefty against Leak, but that price at $5K, I think there's other ways I'd rather go. Eric Hosmer at $4,800 against Colby Lewis is in a great spot. Colby Lewis really bad against lefties. You've got Chris Davis, obviously, some big upside there if you're looking for GPP target. And then you're, of course, looking at the big bat of Adrian Gonzalez there against Tom Kohler, who's had big-time struggles with lefties so far this season. He's another one of those expensive bats you got to love tonight.
Yeah, with the weather at Wrigley, I mean, I'm going to be on a lot of Cubs today, so I'm just going to mention them at every position, I think. I like Rizzo quite a bit. 4,800 against a righty in DeGrom. Like you mentioned, he hasn't been great against lefties. I think Rizzo is probably my top first base play today. I don't mind Votto against Miller for Atlanta. He's an okay play, but, I mean, Rizzo is going to be the guy I'm all over today, I think. Hosmer is a little too pricey for me, but I actually like him quite a bit at Texas against Lewis. Yeah. He's going to be a really low-owned GPP play, if anything. I mean, no one plays that guy, and he's been stellar all year, so I don't think you have to worry too much about his ownership. Cheaper guys, another guy I'd like to mention at Wrigley today, Michael Kadire, facing a lefty in Leicester, is only 3,700. Probably a guy I'm going to use in the outfield, but I just felt like as a value guy, I needed to mention him at first base in case somebody wants one because there's really not much value-wise at first base today.
Yeah. The only cheap guys I'd really consider, Chris Colabello, if he's had it hitting around 6th again. It's been hot since he came up. He's 2,900. First base or outfield. You consider Ike Davis. It's not necessarily a great matchup. Rick Porcello has been solid so far this year, but only 2,500 if you have to. But you and I have said it, not big fans of punting first base. So I think some of these other guys probably better in your maybe a fillers for your stacks or in your GPP lineup.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's move on here to second base. D. Gordon, of course, gets a real tough matchup against Zach Greinke, so he's still getting on base against anyone, but certainly not a cash game play in this matchup. I think he's a tournament play only for me. I like Neil Walker. He's starting to swing a hot bat here. Got Jerome Williams tonight. He's $4,400. He makes for a solid play. Dustin Pedroia against a lefty. Got to like him against lefties. He's had great success also against Kazmir in his career. I like his price tag at $3,800 here too. Yeah,
hard to argue with that. I mean, Pedroia is probably my favorite play. Like you mentioned, Travis, I don't mind him for $3,300. If I'm not playing Samardzija in a lineup, I don't mind Jeanette if he's hitting the 2-hole again as a lefty against Samardzija. Samardzija's really struggled with lefties, and he's really the only lefty that I really like in that lineup a ton. So I think he's a pretty strong play for $3,500, but there's a decent amount of second base plays today, actually. Jace Peterson is an interesting guy against Leak. Leak struggled a little bit with lefties, too. I like Leak a little bit more than Samardzija overall tonight, just as like a safety option, so I would probably roll with Jeanette if I had to pick one of those two.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And if he gets a nice lineup spot tonight, it is a righty-righty matchup, but against subpar righty, Alex Guerrero is only $2,800. Is a nice tournament play tonight as well.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to about do it for second base here. Let's move on to third base, where I'm going to find it really hard to believe that Evan Longoria at $4,200 won't be the most popular play at third base tonight. He's in a great spot against Sabathia. He's owned Sabathia, one of the better hitting guys in the league against lefties, really at any position. So he's in a really, really great spot there. I'm sure he's going to be popular. Manny Machado swinging a hot bat right now. He's $4,500. He's a decent option as well. And then if you want to look cheaper, you got Adrian Beltre a little bit cheaper at $4,400 against Danny Duffy. You know how he does against lefties.
Yeah, definitely. I don't love third base tonight. That's one of the weaker positions for me tonight. I usually hate second base and shortstop, and I actually feel pretty good about both of those positions tonight.
Yeah.
As far as third base goes, I mean, Pedro Alvarez is probably the guy I'm going to be looking at in GPPs against Williams. I don't really want to pay $4,300 for him, but I think he's in a pretty good spot for GPPs. But I say that all the time about him. So, and I know you do too, because usually I only don't mention it because you've already mentioned it.
Yeah.
But he's actually looked pretty good lately. He took 2 walks on Saturday and had a single also. So it looks like he's seeing the ball pretty well over the last few games. Hasn't hit many home runs recently, so maybe he's got a few coming in a bunch here. But as far as third baseman go, I mean, I'm going to be looking for value today, I think.
Yeah.
is where I'm at. I mean, no one has a great matchup. I mean, Alex Rodriguez is okay at 3,800 against Cologne. He's been pretty good, but I mean, there's nothing really special about the matchup there either.
No.
Um,
Kelly Johnson's interesting at 3,200 if he gets a spot in the top five. Nice and cheap. Obviously, we know Leak struggles some against lefties. So I guess as far as punts right now, when we don't really know any lineups, I think he's about as cheap as I'm looking at third base right now.
yeah, you mentioned Adrian Beltre. Adam Rosales is playing for Texas today. He has first base, third base eligibility. He's 2,600 against a lefty, and he's been pretty good against lefties early in this season. So he's a guy I'm going to be looking for when the lineups come out, see where he's hitting. He's hit sixth a couple times in the last few games. Let me check this out really quick.
That's a good call.
Before I say something crazy. Yeah, he hit sixth against the last lefty they faced on May 4th, and he's also played 3 games in a row now. Played 3 games against Tampa Bay. Hit low in the order, playing second base, but had a home run a couple games ago. So I think he's a pretty interesting play if he can get up in the order a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that definitely. And if we move over here to shortstop, we got Hanley Ramirez as your most expensive option at 4,700. We know hasn't done much since he came back from the injury, but I don't think there's too much to be concerned about. I mean, obviously, if he wasn't healthy enough to play, he wouldn't be. So he makes for a GPP option. I'm not going to be paying up for him in cash games here. You've got a couple other interesting options. Marcus Semien got back into the 2-hole the other day. 2 home runs off Felix Hernandez, which is a hell of an accomplishment for anyone. Stole 2 bases the games before, so this guy's a really versatile hitter, obviously. Versatile player, we know. And if he's batting second against Porcello, I don't mind him. But then other guys, you got J.J. Hardy. We know he's got a lot of power going up. He's got a good matchup again tonight. Love these Baltimore bats against Estrada. He's only been back for a few games, but homered yesterday in his last game. So he's an interesting play at 3,800. And Jung Ho Kang, or Kong, I'm not sure how you say it. $3,900 has been batting second. Now he gets Jerome Williams, and this guy's been mashing the ball.
Yep, and I'll make my usual mention of Jimmy Rollins, 3,700 today against a righty and Kohler. He had a nice game yesterday. I mean, it's the same story every day. He's a pretty solid play. He's going to let you down quite a bit, though.
Yeah, as he does, but still in the best lineup in baseball. They've got a good matchup, so should be scoring some runs as well.
Yeah, the value guy I like today is actually Steven Drew, as much as I don't like Steven Drew. He's 2,500, facing a lefty. I'm hoping he hits a little bit higher than 8th, which is what he hit last time he faced a lefty, but we shall see.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him hit 5th at least once this year. It might have been twice now, so maybe he gets that little bump tonight against Cologne. So
yeah, he's hit 5th twice and second once.
Okay, yeah,
decent amount of 6s. So hopefully he can get up in that 6-hole tonight at least, because I really like this matchup for him at 2,500.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great price. Anytime you get a guy anywhere near 5th or 6th there at that price, you got to love that. Move on to the outfield here, where Bryce Harper, if you can afford him, get yourself some Bryce Harper. The guy is insane right now. He's walking a ton. I think he's either leading the National League or all of baseball in walks. I think it might just be the National League.
Remember the good old days when we had to mention him every day when he was 3,800?
Yeah, I know. I missed that. And I mean, he was 42 there for a while, for like a month.
Yeah.
Either way, I mean, he's earned his right to be 5,500 tonight. I mean, and then some. So certainly he's in play, but really expensive. You got to pay up for him. Outside of that, if you're looking for expensive guys, I don't love a lot of these expensive guys. I mean, I'm a big fan of Jacoby Ellsbury. We know that Alex Colomb has had some struggles with lefties. Ellsbury, nice solid floor. He's got some nice upside. You got to like him. Alex Gordon, I'm a big fan of all the KC bats. They should go under-owned. I think Colby Lewis obviously been masking some struggles he had before. I think he gets hit tonight, so I like him as well. Who else are you looking at?
I like all the Pittsburgh outfielders actually against Jeremy Williams. I'm really high on them. McCutchen looks like he's kind of figured it out over the last 2 games. He's got a double in 4 straight games, a hit in 5 or 6 straight, I believe. I feel pretty good about him tonight. It's really hard to pay $5,300 for him when you could just pay $5,500 for Bryce Harper.
Yep.
But I think this is a really solid stack tonight. I mean, even Starling Marte, he's been pretty hot lately. He's another expensive one, but I think he's a pretty strong play. Gregory Polanco is my favorite play out of all of them. He's been hitting leadoff. Got a nice lefty-righty matchup, only 4,300. If I'm playing one of those guys, it's definitely going to be him. Has nice power-speed combo. He's one of my favorite outfield plays tonight overall. You mentioned Jacoby Ellsbury. Brett Gardner's also a solid play against a righty in Cologne. Those guys have been fantastic at the top of that order. One other guy I like a decent amount in the outfield tonight actually is Billy Hamilton for 4,200. obviously speed upside guy, but I think he's in a pretty good spot here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And, if the Reds can score some runs here, even if they don't, we've seen Billy Hamilton in games where the Reds don't score many runs. He gets on base, steals second, scores one run. All of a sudden, you've got yourself 10 points quickly with him.
Yep,
So,
that's what you got to like about him.
yeah, absolutely. Got to love that. And, I mean, as far as cheap guys go, there's not a lot to love down there. I've been searching for somebody. Josh Reddick's the guy that was on fire there for a little while. Really cooled off over the past week, but he's still got some really nice upside at $3,700 against Porcello. So I think he's an interesting tournament option. A guy that was underowned even while he was hot there. So I like him. You already mentioned Kadire. He's got outfield eligibility as well. Delvin
Yep.
Young's an interesting tournament option if you want to get some Baltimore exposure. He's $3,700. He's been batting fourth or fifth recently, so I don't mind him either.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned I like Kadire quite a bit. We talked about him at first base. Another guy that I'm looking at quite a bit is Kyle Blanks for 4,000, hitting fifth probably against the lefty and Duffy tonight. Has cooled off a little bit since he just decided to start with a home run in 3 of 4 games when he came out of the gates. But he's a guy with a ton of power. I love him as a GPP play. I think he doubled over the weekend. If he's hitting fifth in that order, I feel pretty good about him.
Yeah, and that's definitely going to be a lower owned guy. People don't target a lot of these Texas bats, but Carlos Peguero was hitting well, but
Yeah.
I don't like him in the lefty obviously against Duffy today. But yeah, these are some guys that, I mean, that Texas stacks have just been going under owned and they've been mashing the ball. They've been doing a lot. So I think that a lot of these Texas guys will be really low owned as well. And I'm going to mention Adam Jones as well at $4,300. I think he's too cheap. He hasn't hit a home run in a while. Seems like he's had 5 home runs for about a month now. But, I mean, this is a really good spot against Marco Estrada, who's gotten roughed up tons of times. So I definitely like him. And I guess we better mention Jock Peterson before we get yelled at. He's going to be popular as well. And
Yep.
he's in a fine spot now priced accordingly, down to $4,400 now that they're out of Coors Field, too. So, all right, that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Lots of great content, as always, dailyfantasycafe.com. And we will see you guys for tomorrow with some more great content.